it's like part of our life, make part of our life about gratitude. I think a lot of time you can feel more happy. You're in a difficult situation, you're gonna say, well, at least I have this, right? So I'm grateful for this. I don't have 100%, but I have 70%.
Today we are talking to Dr. Emily Letran. This is such a great episode. You're going to just love her story. She's an incredible woman. She is a dentist. She's a CEO of Exceptional Leverage. She's an international speaker, a certified high performance coach and leadership trainer, a business strategist, a founder of the Emily Letran Foundation, author of From Refugee to Renaissance Woman and Commit to Embracing Your Life. She has done so much with her life. She is a mom of incredible, incredible humans, and she is here to talk to us about how you can find and fulfill your ultimate potential and ask yourself that question, are you doing so? She is a refugee from Vietnam who brought herself up the ranks of success in America, and she has incredible perspective to share with us of how to face challenge, of the power of gratitude, and how to look forward in her life now, how she approaches challenge on a daily basis. She shares with us her story of her journey from Vietnam and how the responsibilities of being an immigrant in this country and feeling that responsibility towards her family and how she uses the lessons she's learned over the years for greater contribution to her community and to the community at large. It's a powerful episode. I cannot wait for you to meet Dr. Emily Letran. Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today is going to be a great day, my friends, because we have with us the one and only Dr. Emily Letran. Welcome, Dr. Emily. I'm so honored to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for creating this platform where we can share our stories and our strategies. And I want to say thank you to people who tune in to watch this. Just take some time and learn different perspective, open up your mind, and hopefully make some changes to have more happiness.
Absolutely. Oh, you're speaking my language, Dr. Emily. Thank you so much. What you just mentioned was stories, and I would love to start off our conversation today with your story because it is so powerful. You have such a fascinating story. Please share with my audience kind of where you came from and the story that led you to where you are today.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's very interesting because years ago I thought my story is just one of those stories, right? I lived with it all my life, and I would tell my friends, if you talk to any Vietnamese who had come to the U.S. from 1978, 79, all the way up to about 1990, we all have the same story. And I thought it was so okay. So why am I talking about it? Everybody have the same story. But I realized many years later when I first shared the story is that the story immigration to this land of opportunity. Yes, that part is similar, but what we come through and the mental state that we have to have, and seeing people around us, that part is a little different, and it shapes us in different ways. So I was actually born in Vietnam back in the late 60s, during the Vietnam War, and we were very lucky. I mean, we were sheltered because we live in Saigon, which is the last fall, right at the end of the Vietnam War. So, but there was war going all over. I remember growing up every night watching on TV. Back then, it's just black and white TV, one channel, and it just images of war, bombings, dead bodies, people fleeing villages. A lot of those images now, if you watch on TV and you see, the war in different countries, and um, people shooting people, those kind of things. That was what happening back there. But I was watching those images as a kid, and in 1975 is when the Vietnam War ended and the Americans left, and the life just changed overnight because the communists came in and the government, is Big Brother. They control everything. Uh, we would we would go and stand in line to buy anything that they want to sell to us. So in those early days, you can't just go and buy anything you want. You have to go buy things that the government allow you to buy, right? And anything else is black market kind of thing. And as a kid, I learned that very early because I would be the one with a little notebook standing in line. Because after they sell whatever to you, they mark it in the notebook that your family already bought the rice or whatever because
Mm,
it's sort of ration in a way.
mm,
So I grew up in that environment where there's a it's lack, right? You don't have a lot. You do what you have.
mm,
You keep a low profile, and then my mother passed away due to cancer. So I was 8 when she passed away, and a couple of years after that, Vietnam decided to go to war again with Cambodia, which is on the west of Vietnam, and then China in the north. And they were drafting all the young men to go to war again. So at that point, my aunt, she's my dad's youngest sister, she decided to leave. She was a pharmacist, but she couldn't really work with the system. So she was taking her 2 kids. Her kids were, I think at that time they were 8 and 6, and she was going to take my brother, 14 years old, and two of my cousins, 16 and 17, and we're going to escape the draft. And my dad told me that you're the oldest girl in the family. You have to go help your aunt. I was 13 years old, so I left the country with my aunt, and I left my dad behind and two younger siblings. And unfortunately, he passed away after that. So that was the last that I saw him. So the journey is one of those boat people. I think back then they actually call it another exodus, right?
mm,
From Vietnam, all of us were coming out of Vietnam, and we ended up in refugee camps. We were very lucky. The United Nations um, have certain countries helping us. So I ended up in Malaysia. We were on an island, and every 3 days they give you a package of a certain amount of food, and another 3 days they give you another package, and
mm,
and that's basically what you have. And so I learned a little bit of English there, a little bit of conversational English. Other than that, there's nothing to do except going to the beach. It's a deserted island, so all the refugees
mm,
we just build our own thing there. People build their own house, and every day you get in line to get a bucket of water per family.
mm,
So the fresh water because you're on an island. So going through that, when I came to the United States, I we really didn't have anything. I always tell people the luggage I brought was just hope and faith. And I think it was good that I was young enough where I wasn't worried. Right? When you're young, you don't know enough to worry about the future. Um, because I know my aunt must have been worried sick, right?
mm,
She's the only adult, right? Because the rest of us were teenagers
mm,
coming to the country, and so we started trying to adapt to the culture, learning the language, trying to live with very minimal because we got the welfare, food stamp, housing, and I'm always very grateful about this country for all that opportunity. I think if we were to go to any other country, because there were several countries that were taking in the refugees, we may not have been where we are here because there's so much opportunities here, and we're lucky to be in California, where the transportation system is good. So we didn't have a car, right? There were 10 of us and one car. So we got around a bus, and a bike. That was my main thing. Like you would go shopping, food shopping, and you come back with, I don't know, 6 or 7 bags. Three of us, each one has several bags. Biking, and but we survived. So that's the thing is, I think given the opportunity and the drive, because we've gone through so much, um, we were able to achieve here because there were the help. right? They want the opportunity, and and also the country, our country, embrace differences. You could be Asian, you could be Persian, you could be, Hispanic, whatever it is. If you learn to stand on your feet, right, and you ask for help when you need to, and you try your best, I think you can just build a life of your own here, and you can design that life of happiness,
Mm.
which is achieving what you want and being able to live life the way you want.
Wow. It does take a certain, like you said, you came with the baggage of hope and faith. It takes that perspective to be able to eke out the gifts of the opportunities that you have. And so it's so fascinating to me because, as you know, two people can have the same experience, but take from it completely different opportunities and completely different lessons. What was it that gave you that perseverance and that perspective of having hope, even when you were on a beach in Malaysia and didn't know what the next day would bring? What was it that gave you that hope for certain perseverance?
I think it's gratitude.
Mm.
For me, it was, you know, I'm here and the family's back home. What can I do to make sure that, just put it like, I don't fail them, right? Even though my dad never said, you're going to go and you're supposed to do this, this, this. He just said, you're the oldest one. You're going to go help your aunt, right?
Mm.
So, to having the gratitude that, I have this opportunity, and from there you want to fulfill whatever expectation that you think you're supposed to do. So that's why I think a lot of time when you see immigrants who come to this country, we tend to send things back home, right? Whether it's sending money, sending gift, because it's that expectation. You got to the land of opportunity, you're supposed to help, right? And
Mm-hmm.
right, but so the way you can look at it is, you can look at it as a burden, or you can look at it as a privilege, because you're the first one here, right? You're the one that could actually earn the money to help at home. And sometimes you may not earn a lot of money here, but because of the difference in currency value, right, from the US and a third world country, all of a sudden you're rich compared to home. And so if you have that feeling of gratitude that drive you and say, you know what, I'm so grateful I have this opportunity. I want to give back, right? So gratitude kind of go like that, right? You're feeling grateful and a lot of times you give back. I think if we can have that, it's like part of our life, make part of our life about gratitude. I think a lot of time you can feel more happy. You're in a difficult situation, you're gonna say, well, at least I have this, right? So I'm grateful for this. I don't have 100%, but I have 70%. Rather than saying she has 100% and I only have 70%, right? So like, just like you said, a different look. But I think if you have that mentality of feeling grateful, um, having that gratitude, and sort of be able to look back and say, I've gone this far, that I should be happy, I should appreciate what I have. I think a lot of time it helps carry you forward. And that's why I love the program I'm involved with, which is the high performance coaching, because it's about living up to your full potential wherever you are. You could be successful, but so if you're successful as a person, what is the next level of success? Maybe you can create impact. Maybe you can give back, right? If you're not the one giving back, maybe you can help, encourage other people to give back in whatever area.
Mm.
And one time I think I post on social media, I want to be a world famous philanthropist. And somebody messaged me privately and say, why do you need to be world famous? and, And I said, because if I'm world famous, it's going to be easier for me to ask people to do stuff, right? So if somebody say, oh, Emily's world famous, we know about her. And I say, hey, everybody, there's this hurricane in the Philippines, for example. Let's everybody give $20. I think you're more likely to give the $20 if you know me as a world famous or whatever, however you want to call it, rather than somebody you don't know.
Mm.
So for me, that would be to leverage your impact to do more things, right? And it may not be your own project, it could be other people projects. And that's what influencer marketing is you get the influencer to help endorse you and talk about projects that you want to work on that you love. And if it's giving value, then I don't there's nothing wrong with it.
Mm. I love your perspective. And I'm wondering if there was ever a time in your life where you struggled with this. Was there ever a time in your life where your judgment over a situation was clouding your vision of what the impact could be? In other words, you mentioned a little bit about that person's suspicion of you when you said, "Why do you want to be world famous?" They were having some judgment about that. Was there ever a time in your life where your own judgment, either of yourself or of others, was negatively affecting the impact that if you could let go of that judgment, you would see the greater gift that that could be?
Well, that's a difficult question. I
Mm.
think I think we all have moments, right, where we judging ourselves. I think I'm understanding your question that way. Like, if I judge myself a certain way, then it impact me, right? My action, and I think the one of the biggest time was when I was going through a difficult situation with my son. Um, and as mothers, we, our kids are number one, right? And so I have this little one. He at that time he was 14 when I knew about it, but always been a straight A student, loved by everybody. He's not Mr. Popular per se, but everybody knows him. He's a little shorter, skinniest Asian boy in school, and we didn't know he was being bullied, and we didn't know what's going on for a couple of years. So by the time I found out, he was, and I found out because I took my kids to a business conference because I love to go to conferences to learn and actually drag my kids with me. So they'd been to two conferences before that. So at this particular one, um, he was sharing about teen suicide, and people saw right through him that it was about him. And so for me, that was it. It was when I'm questioning, am I doing the right thing, right? As a mother, um, am I doing enough? Have I been paying attention to my kid? Like all of those things where you're really trying your best, but yet you're missing this part. And of course, I'm sure teenagers nowadays they're a little bit more complicated than us
Yeah.
because they got all these social media, like all these things that are feeding them information. And my son has a very vivid sense of imagination too. So in any case, we worked through that period. I was very lucky because my mentor is one of my mentors, Sharon Lecter, the co-author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, and we were working through and we were talking about bullying and suicide and my son now, I'm proud to say he's in second year at UCLA. He writes for the Daily Bruin.
Mm.
He has he's double major and minor in something else. So he lives his full life. But I think one of the biggest thing that you know yourself, and big big things like that happen to you where you have to stop and you have to question yourself, right?
Mm.
You question your values, you question everything I've done up to this point. That's why is it like this? And before that, I had other difficult situations happen to me. So for me, it always go back to faith. And I think whatever faith we have, for me, it's usually boils down to, okay, there must be a lesson in this. So let me learn this lesson really fast, right?
Mm.
And let me just slow down and evaluate what I've been doing.
Mm.
And in my particular case, my son he's a sharp kid. He's been hiding it well. So he got two siblings. Nobody knew. My husband didn't know. So for me, it was a one of those wake up calls where you're let somebody up there is letting you know you don't know everything,
Mm,
right? And you need to seek the support because I didn't know what to do when that first happened. And just take sometimes it's taking one day at a time
mm,
because sometimes we are so busy we just keep going 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 and we think being busy and achieving what we have is going to bring us happiness, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's slowing down
mm,
and just doing nothing or just watching your kids or having silent conversation with them.
mm,
Just let them come to you and talk to you, those kind of things.
mm,
I've learned it during that experience.
mm. And I can imagine, and thank you so much for sharing that story with us, but I can imagine for you as somebody who had so much responsibility for your whole family, somebody who was so driven and growth oriented and looking to achieve, and you have achieved so much success as a business owner for decades, a high performance coach, bringing support and practical strategies to the people who you guide and consult with, you know, taking the moment to be present in the moment and slowing down to have that presence with your children. It's sometimes a challenge for very high achieving driven men and women when we are so goal oriented. Taking that time and seeing the greater gift of that is difficult to wrap our heads around. So I honor you for that.
Thank you. I think that's why, like I said, for me it's about faith, right?
Mm,
Well, God is trying to remind you, like
mm,
you got to do this. You need to slow down, and for me it because sometime, as you know, sometime in life we can't explain everything. Or sometimes we say, why is this happening to me? And you can try to search for the answer forever, or you can say, okay, this must be a reminder that
mm,
I need to step back, I need to stop, I need to pause, and I need to look at really what I'm doing right now. Does it serve me, right? Or maybe does it serve more than me, my whole family,
mm,
that kind of a thing. And it just helped to not take so much responsibility, I think, or
mm.
not to blame ourselves so much,
Yeah.
right? Because you could, I mean, I was kind of going through the blaming thing for a while there, but we eat all the meals together. I pick him up every day from school. I take him to school. I mean, I pretty much don't go to school with him,
Mm,
but I'm there for him,
mm,
right? But when you have a smart kid and he knows how to hide his feelings, it's just harder. And again, I was so grateful that I took him to that business conference, and he decided to share.
mm,
And what came out of that is actually an Amazon best-selling book. He wrote a book. It's called Fade Away,
mm,
and it shares that story of him going through that journey, being bullied and for being looking weak and smaller and that kind of thing. And he shares some of those comments in the book that was very, kind of disturbing, right?
mm,
Because the other kids would tell him in PE, well, he's the slowest one because he's small, right?
mm,
And you run slower than the girls, right?
mm,
But hey, if the girls are taller, they're gonna they're gonna pass him. So, but as a kid, they don't see that, right? They just say,
mm,
"Oh yeah, I'm running slower than the girls," kind of thing. So for me, it was like a whole education
mm,
system, just all condensed there because they're words that can hurt or put people down, and how do you overcome those?
mm,
Yeah.
mm. Oh, that's beautiful and so incredible that he then went on to be able to inspire and support others in that journey. So
Yes.
interesting about the idea of allowing the judgment to drop and then seeing the lesson in the challenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, Emily, what are your challenges now? in this phase of your life, in this part of your business, in inspiring and supporting other business owners at such a high level, what are your challenges now? What are your areas of growth that you need to find?
Yeah, well, I can tell you right now, one of the challenges is being an empty nester.
Ah!
When people ask me, so we recording this, right? We still during the pandemic, but when it first happened in 2020, when people ask me, what's the best thing that come out of the pandemic, like 2020, and I said the best thing is the kids are stuck at home, right? Because I was supposed to be an empty nester, and because the kids were stuck at home, I realized that I wasn't ready, right? Like, oh, they still home, good. And it's a joke, by the way. So
Yeah.
so so
If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you didn't get into business to be miserable. The problem is that people feel that if their business gets busier, if they start becoming more successful, that happiness will eventually set in. But it can actually get worse. This is why I created the Business of Happiness Prosperity Coaching. In this one-on-one coaching, we look at how to redefine success on your terms and re-find the joy and the passion in your dream. Visit me at thebizofhappiness.com and become the happiest business owner you know.
so I think we always will have challenge because we always are going to go through transition,
Mm,
especially when it's about growth. So one of the challenge I have is making sure that people hear my message, reaching the audience, and getting other people on board. And what I mean by that is just like we mentioned earlier, sometimes people say whatever they want on social media, without the proof of it, without the training, and then there are other people who follow them, right?
mm,
So having been trained as a high performance coach, and in other areas, I'm not the type of person who's going to say, don't listen to so and so because so and so actually hasn't done it, right? So so making sure that you are creating that influence, right?
mm,
Making sure that people can hear your voice, that people listen to the right people, just put it that way.
mm,
Um, that that's a challenge because I'm busy. I still run my dental practices.
mm.
I'm waiting for my daughter to come out. She got 2 more years from UCLA, so she's gonna graduate 30 years, exactly 30 years after me from dental school there.
Wow.
And yeah, and so it's kind of like, okay, I'm still gonna do this, and then I'm starting this and learning some technology, leveraging, right? Because as a dentist, I we didn't have to be that high tech in general. And I still remember years ago, I was very resistant to having email. And this is a long time ago because I said, why would I want people to, you know, keep talking to me?
Yeah.
And and the only reason I got email was because one of the dental company, that was the only way to communicate with them, right? And I remember going to my husband and saying, okay, I need the email now. And he said, well, you kept saying you don't want email. And I said, yeah, no, but this is the only way to talk to this company. And that's when I started having email. So all of us, we have, if we keep wanting to grow, I think we will always have challenges.
Mm,
And I don't see them as challenges anymore. Like I don't, the word challenge per se, because I see them as period of growth. And I see them, and I always think, well, I don't need to know everything. I'm just gonna reach out to so and so who know how to do this, so and so who can support me, or whatever company I can outsource. I just need to understand the concept. I need to know my goal. Have that clarity. Okay, I want to go there, and I need these people to support me. So I don't see that as much as challenges. I see it as, the growth opportunity that it'll take more than me to get to that level. Does that make
beautiful.
sense? Does that make
Makes
sense?
so much sense. It makes so much sense. And it's just such a unique perspective that really speaks to the success that you have seen in life. And when we can approach any challenge that way as a great opportunity, or even with a sense of curiosity, what can I learn from this? How much growth can I get from this? It
Right.
becomes exciting instead of intimidating and fearful. So I love that perspective. Um, what is your superpower, Dr. Emily? I love knowing from incredibly influential people like you how they perceive their own superpowers. I think I know exactly what your superpower is, but what do you think is your superpower, your unique strength that makes you special?
Well, I think one of my superpowers is being able to challenge people. And I know I don't like the word challenge per se, but it's to get people to think bigger, and so they can, and of course that part is the training as a high performance coach, right? Because you want people to up level their success or their performance. um, Asking questions to get people to think bigger, to get people to question themselves, like, am I good enough? And by good enough, I don't mean good enough as a, as a success. Is, am I fulfilling my god-given potential?
Mm.
Right? um, you could live in a big house, you could have a big business. What is the impact, though? What is the impact that you have for the community around you, whether it's a physical community or maybe it's a virtual community? um, Years ago, I've learned from, consultants in industry specific, on stage they will talk about philanthropy, right? But in small mastermind group, I don't see them doing it. And I work with a different consultant where one of your goal, he made you set the goal. you know your what part of your goal every year is how much money or time are you going to give. And to me, that was like night and day. We're not talking about it, we're making it the goal, right? So I think, so now when I'm coaching people, I always that's always one of the things that I bring up. What have you given back? Or maybe,
Contribution. Mm.
yes, contribution. Maybe you're just giving back time back to your family. It whatever it is, but it's not about you, right? Because you are the person, you want to grow a certain way, you want to grow your business a certain way, but what about the people around you, right? And it could be giving back time to your personal relationship, it could be family relationship, it could be with your community, it could be with your old friends, whatever it is. And when I do, when I have the opportunity to talk to people, that's usually where I'm taking them. Put it that way, like, get them to think a little bigger about whatever it is that they are complaining about, that they think that is the difficulty, right? If you're trying to solve this problem, but do you have other things that you could do, or should we just focus on this problem? Because sometimes, as you know, sometimes we don't focus on the right problem. We think it's a problem, but maybe it's not a problem. And in order to solve that, we have to focus on something else, right? Something bigger or something deeper. And I think that's one of my gifts, and I totally credit that to my mom. It's kind of like like an innate thing that I learned, because I know, my family always talk about my mom to this day when we have a family get together, and it's always about her and her talent to speak to people, and to either convince them to do something for her, influence them,
Mm.
invite them to grow. And so she passed away, I don't know, 40 years ago, more than 40 years ago, and they still talking about her. And it's always about her and how she talked and how she cared about people.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Dr. Emily, what is your definition of happiness?
Well, one, I think happiness is peace.
Mm.
And obviously that's mental peace, right? When when you when you say to yourself, I'm good with this, right? When you don't, I'm a pretty ambitious person. Uh, I want to go to that next level, not because I need the title, the status, but it's because going back to your God given potential, right? I'm in a group with people who are higher level. I'm thinking, can I get to that level? Same as them. Of course, now I'm smarter. Do I actually need that level, right? But it's always a little bit. I want to get to that level. I want just to try to see if I can get there.
Mhm.
And being happy is, I'm good right now. I'm happy with this. Let me just enjoy this wherever I'm at, and having that gratitude, right? Um, where I don't have to worry, because again, sometimes when you're real ambitious and you set really high goals, then you keep trying to get to that goal,
Mhm.
and you're anxious, and so you don't enjoy what you have right now. So I think for me a big part of it is peace. Like at one point I was in this conflict for a long time, um, with another person, and one day I just said, we're done. Right? Like we still, I mean, we can still talk and everything, but we are not going to talk about this conflict anymore. You know what I mean? Because it's an
Yes.
interpersonal relationship. So I just took out a piece of paper and said, as of this day, you know, we are not, I'm not talking about this conflict anymore.
Boundary established.
Yes. And so I folded that piece of paper, stuck it in an envelope, sealed it up, right? And it's so funny that the moment I've done that, I felt peace, because I no longer allow that to bother me, like to think about it. And I think that is like self created happiness, right? Because that other person is not going to bring me the happiness. And we always want to be like, no, I'm right. No, you're right. Like that kind of thing. And this could be in interpersonal relationship. It could be in business. I'm dealing with a patient. Patient is difficult. I could be just fighting with the patient, or I could just say, you know what? Here's all your money. Um, why don't we just you know, why don't we just end it here? And I could have invested time and money already in that particular treatment. But the moment that I decide, peace is going to be much better for me than dealing with this, that feeling of peace will make me happy, right? I don't have to deal with this person anymore. I don't have to deal with this situation anymore. So I think for me, peace is a big part of happiness. Now, of course, it could be laughter, that kind of physical happiness, and I do that every day. I need a little bit of that kind of happiness. I have a sarcastic sense of humor, so uh, I'm driving. I want to cheer me up. I'm just gonna listen to a little bit of laugh radio, right? Got a little humor going there. When I'm going into a treatment room, I tell myself I need to make the patient laugh,
Mm.
right? So if I have 10 patients today and I could at least get half of them laughing, I mean, those appointments were already easier. And so it's about creating those micro moments where you you have a little bit of fun, you accept yourself, right? And you have peace. I think just overall that would be a happy day.
Beautiful. Beautiful. If my audience wants to find more about you, Emily, and about the services you provide and the support you offer to so many of your clients for high achieving peak performance clients, how can they find you? We'll put all of the links in the show notes, but for those of my audience who are listening as they're driving to work, how can they find you?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking me that. One of the things they can do, and you remember the word challenge, right? I like for them. I like for them to take a quiz. It's a high performance quiz, and what they can do is they can text the word action 2021 to 26786, and what they're gonna get is they're gonna get a link to take a quiz, and it's a 10-question quiz, and it asks about different aspects of you, business and personal, and then you get a score, and so you can see where you are at as a high performer individual, because again, it's not about the money, it's not about the status, it's not about how much you've done. It's about peace. It's about being happy is it's about having the energy to go through the day. All of that is in that quiz. So I would love to challenge people to take the quiz and see where they're at, and if they want to reach out with more questions. I think there's a follow up. Like if you have a question or you want to chat, you can book a call with me. I would invite them to go to my website. It's my name, dremilyletran.com. We have some free resources on there. I think that's where you saw my TEDx video. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, that was the third time I spoke in public.
That TEDx talk was
That
the
that
third
te-
time.
that TEDx talk.
Wow.
It was just we talk about stepping into the challenge and taking up the challenge and see how much we can do. The opportunity came, and I was actually in some training to be a speaker, and I was just, well, there's this opportunity. Do I say yes or not? Right? And
Wow.
I said, I'll just say yes. So, so I mean, I look at it now. I'm a little better now.
Yeah.
As
Well,
as
it was
a-
excellent. It was such I would love to I'll leave a link for that in the show notes as well because your
yeah.
TEDx talk was brilliant. It was beautiful.
Thank
Yeah.
you. But what I mean by that is being able to look back and celebrate what you've done, right?
Mm,
Because you're talking about being happy,
mm,
and I talk about being driven. Yes, you could always be driven, and let me try to get to that level and fulfill my god-given potential. But how do you stay happy? Because you will never get to your god-given potential. um, how you stay happy is you do celebrate what you've accomplished, right? You look back at what you've done, and that's one of the things I advise people. Whenever you get into a difficult situation, just stop and say, have I been have I been in this before? Right? Let's just say you're in a legal situation, for example. Well, have I been
mm,
in this before?
mm,
Maybe it wasn't as big of a problem, but maybe you've dealt with something similar, and you kind of stop and say, okay, what did I do last time?
mm.
Right? What are the things that I could draw from last time? So I want to offer this really fun exercise,
Okay.
and I learned this from my coach Brendan Bouchard. Right? So what you do is I want you to write down 10 things that you would advise your 20-year-old self, right? So you write whatever it is, your 10 advice. So we're all taking time. We wrote down the 10 things, stay focused, whatever. And then, and then he said, now I want you to write down your biggest challenge right now, right? Whatever problem that you're trying to deal with. So we all sit, we're writing down this thing difficult. And I remember at that time I was writing down something about technology because I'm not tech savvy. So I'm writing down something, probably computer or something. And then he said, okay, so now that when you're done, I want you to look at the list of the 10 things. And can you use any of those to solve this problem? Right? And I'm looking at it and I go, oh, it says here, get mentor or get get help, get support. I'm like, wait a minute.
You
Like,
coached yourself.
you coach yourself, right? But it was really funny because when we were writing it, we were getting really deep. Okay, this is what I'm going to tell myself: do this and don't give up, and this.
Mm,
And then you go over here and you say, I have this big challenge. And you write it
mm,
down, and yes, you know what to do.
mm,
You just think you don't, and that's why I think a lot of time when we can look back at what we've done, um, and we apply that, or we take that experience and we decide when we're going to have peace for ourselves, right? Because at this moment, you're healthy, you have a happy family. That could be happiness already, right? It doesn't even have to do with money or status or whatever. That could be your own happiness if you accept that, and then you can just enjoy that happiness right now. Next week you can try something else.
mm,
So for me, like I think last week I post a picture every year around Chinese New Year time, which
mm,
actually is going to be next week. uh, we have a beautiful flower tree in front of my office, and it always happened to bloom right around Chinese New Year. And it's funny because Chinese New Year is not a particular date, it's a lunar calendar. So when you look at the regular calendar, like this year is on February 1st. Last year, I got this Facebook reminder. Last year was January 28th or something like that. So, but always right around the time I can look outside and see these beautiful flowers, right? So for me, it's God's intention, right? Hey, I'm going to give you the flowers for New Year, and that is happiness. Being able to be inside your office and looking out and see the flowers at the time when you wish to have the flowers, which is New Year, that's already happiness. So it could be very simple. It could be just a moment, or it could be a whole state of mind. You choose. You choose how to run that business of happiness. And
Mm.
like for you, you can bring on this show with the guests and sharing stories and sharing perspectives. And I think that could bring happiness to other people. And I'm sure it's part of your happiness is to be that influencer and bring in that platform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is so beautiful when your happiness, when you can put your happiness first and see it positively influencing others and bringing
Yes,
others happiness. Yeah.
yes, yes.
Very powerful. Very powerful. Oh my gosh, Dr. Emily, thank you. Thank you for
You're welcome.
sharing your presence. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your strategies. Thank you for sharing your support. We're so grateful to you for just being available to us on this platform and for sharing everything with us. So I just want to honor you for everything that you've been through and all the lessons that you've taken in your life and been so courageous to share with the rest of us. I honor you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I encourage everybody to share a little bit of themselves, right? To be vulnerable to the right group of people. Um, because sometimes if you just want to vent or whatever, or moan, or whatever it is, complaining, just make sure that it's serving you, right? And because that's how I work is you're focusing on the result. What are you trying to achieve if you're putting out those venting notes, or you're trying to brag about something? What is that goal? What are the results, right? And for me, if you can be focused on that, then you will find all of a sudden, oh, this thing just happened for me, right? Because I put out that note, that's the intention, or I put out that post, that's the intention, and people reach out, opportunities come up. It's because that was the intention that I put out, right? Or you could invite condolences and people, feeling sad with you, whatever it is. Just make sure it's positive because it's going to contribute to your life. And if you need to complain, maybe it's just going to be on a one-on-one, or to those people that you want to, instead of putting it all out there and being vulnerable all the time and just getting a lot of people involved, just like the media, right? The media, whatever they put out there, and the more people see it, then that's the emotions and the direction that it takes people. If you think of yourself as an influencer because you have a platform, then just be mindful of that and just go for the positive results.
Love it. Love it.
Thank
What a positive, beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much, Dr. Emily. And thank you to all of you for joining us today on this fabulous conversation. And thank you for being open to a new perspective, a new state of mind, and a new understanding of positivity and how it can impact your life on a bigger way. And remember, my friends, when you feel good, that's when you can do good. Bye bye.
thank you. Bye bye.